When the humans joined the interstellar community, I think every species assumed that they were going to be absorbed into one of the large empires looming in the Orion Arm. I recall talking to my companions on the Rukshpa embassy ship on our way to Earth for the first formal contact. Inchu joked, "These humans are so unintelligent, they colonized a dead world before they built a space military." When we entered the human solar system, I saw that he was correct. These strange primates had decided to colonize a planet they called Mars. From what we could tell, it had always been a lifeless world. A cold, desolate little rock covered in useless red sand. After the ceremonies and official greetings, I asked one of the humans about their strange path into the stars. "Dr. Nicloso," I said, approaching a small, skinny human. "Unlike most creatures in the galaxy, the humans stand at an average of 2 meters shorter than myself. It is my understanding that you are the president of the Martian colony experiment?" "Yes," Nicloso said, "I am. We are just getting to explore the galaxy. I am excited and hopeful that your species will aid us." My air holes at the back of my neck tightened, and I expelled some air in a quiet laugh. "I must ask, why did you choose to colonize such a desolate little planet? Did you find some energy sources long dead beneath its crust?" The human doctor looked a bit confused at this. "No. The uranium on Mars was still active when we got there. Nuclear production has actually been easier than expected on the planet. But to answer your question more directly, Mars has always been of great interest to us, since we first observed it over 3,000 solar years ago. It plays a vital role in many of our mythologies. My great-grandfather thought that we should preach the gospel on Mars." "Uranium?" My translator device told me this was the human word for the 92nd element. What use was this to the humans? I thought, perhaps, that they loved the way the element sometimes glows, and that these small creatures could be tricked into a worse deal if we gave them some useless chunk of it. I would mention this strange human tick to my supervisor, the head ambassador Uxing. There was another word, Nuclear. Our dictionary was not complete yet. My device told me that the word has something to do with inner part. It did not matter, besides a passing interest, so I politely left the conversation, and after making a few more stops among the guests, I retired for the night. The day after the contact, myself and several other Rukshpa officials sat down with the humans to work out their conditions for joining our empire. I noticed that Dr. Nicloso was also in attendance, and gave him a handshake, as the humans call it. "So," Uxing began, "we are here to talk about what assurance you humans will need in order to join our empire. There's a big galaxy out there. As you all likely know, there are at least 4 major empires that have settlements within a 4 dozen light years of Earth. We hope you will decide to peacefully join the Rukshpa. We can provide you with protection and trade networks." "Actually," one of the humans stood up, "we were wondering if you could clarify a few things first." Of course, Uxing said. It was not unusual for novel species to have a little trepidation at first, but they all came around, easy way or hard. "One of our representatives spoke to an ambassador last night. A sort of side comment made us wonder, what energy source are you all using?" I could see out of the corner of my 4th left eye that Uxing was trying not to show their surprise. "We use fossil fuels, the same as every advanced species in the galaxy." "I see," the human continued. "We thought as much. We are still getting used to these translators. The other 3 empires you speak of also use fossil fuels?" "That is accurate." "Well," the human said, "then we actually are going to have to reject your offer to join the empire. Instead..." "Oh!" This is when I stood up on my 3 hind legs. "That is most unfortunate. I was really hoping you would have joined willingly. We Rukshpa are among the most enlightened in this region, but we are not afraid to wage war in order to control the resources buried beneath this world." "If it's really the old bones you want," the human said, "then you can have them. But I think you would be more interested to know about our nuclear energy source." That is when the diagrams came out. The humans had discovered the atomic model just as we had, but they had taken it a step further. It is a bit difficult for me to explain, even still. Do you know how a shipbuilder may take a clump of unprocessed aluminium and make a space-worthy craft? Well, the humans have taken this thinking to a new level. Less than 50 solar years after they discovered the atom, they broke it apart. 2 days of this process releases more energy than even the most efficient fossil processing plants can produce in a Ross year. It's incredible how much energy it makes. The humans told us about a time when the technology was still new, and they had had their accidents. But in the intervening years, it had become safe and even more effective. Worst of all, the process was very confusing for us. The humans said that members of their species had to spend many soul years in a school to learn how to manage a nuclear plant. They almost claimed that building such plants safely required cultural knowledge, passed down from ancient generations. They dared us to try, but warned that without experimental knowledge, great disaster could await us. We would have to treat them as equals, an independent single-star empire, in order to gain access to the energy type. When we brought the message back to the Emperor, Ambassador Xing tried to sell it as a good deal. We would get access to this new amazing technology, all in exchange for not taking just 2 planets. The Emperor was furious with us. They had almost the entire staff removed. It was a controversial decision that some said led to the assassination a few Ross years later. Eventually the deal was accepted by the new Emperor. Little did we know that these petite creatures were turning around and making similar deals with the other free empires. Even more surprising was the start of their expansion. It was slow at first, but exponential. Unlike us, they didn't seem to care much if a world had harbored life. They took the deadless and the deadliest worlds alike, and turned them into air-conditioned paradises. When a planet was too small, they would gloat about how high they could jump. When a planet was too large, they would genetically engineer their bones to be stronger. Too close to a star? Thicker skin to protect from radiation. Too far? Hairier bodies and more robust artificial heating systems. Their ability to bend both matter and genome to their will was almost magical to us. Within a few sol decades, they had wriggled their way around the 50 largest empires in the galaxy. They were recognized as independent by nearly all of them. Some empires saw revolutions due partially to the now uselessly tight grip of their central planets that no longer had finite resources to haggle over, and partially due to the near limitless human spirit of freedom on display throughout the Milky Way. We had even begun to call the galaxy by that silly human name. One empire remained dead set in their determination to crush the humans, though. The Malums were a fierce and militaristic species. They would not take that same deal that we Roshbar took all those many Roj years ago. The Malums plainly refused to even meet with the human ambassadors, so my species was chosen as an intermediary. On the morning I was set to leave for the Malum Empire, I met with a human in one of their many space stations around my home world. I was surprised to learn that it was Dr. Nicloso, granddaughter of that first human I had talked to at first contact. After working out some of the kinks in the negotiations, I tried out one of the human phrases I had begun to pick up. Dr. Nicloso, I wanted to ask if you had any tricks up your sleeve. Did I say that right? Yes, you did, she smiled at me. But I don't think we do. She was silent in thought for a moment, then, but this does remind me of a time from human history. Have you been studying that as well? I have, but I am just now coming up upon the Trojan War. Please do not tell me you want to fly a horse-shaped ship into the Malum Empire. She laughed. No. I'm thinking of something a bit more recent than that. My grandfather mentioned a time when humans used our amazing energy source not for good, but for evil. He told me that his great-grandfather had been alive when humans used this terrible weapon on each other. One group of humans ruthlessly obliterated 2 whole cities. I was a bit dumbfounded. Was this a bluff by the humans? A last fated attempt to avoid war by a species too cowardly to have a military? Do you have proof of this explosion? You should skip ahead a bit in human history to something called the Cold War. It was a time where many humans feared these kinds of attacks. Assuming you are telling the truth, do you humans still have these nuclear bombs? No, of course not. We got rid of all of them 15 solar years before you bunch showed up. At least I think so, anyways. Who's to say, really? There may be some laying around Nebraska or Saratov collecting dust. With that, I got to my ship and headed towards the other side of the galaxy. Even powered by the supernatural human energy, the trip would take several days. In that time, I learned all I could about the human Cold War. When I arrived at my destination, I showed the evidence to the Malums. They quickly decided that even a Cold War was too risky for them to threaten the humans, and within hours, agreed to accept their independence.